You spend 15 to 20 million on ads and it turns into about $250 million a year in sales.
Yeah, the joke is that I throw money at the front of the screen and more money comes out the back.
We've all got agency horror stories sitting here, right?
If you spent 40 hours, 1 week, Google how to run Facebook ads, watch a few YouTube videos, you'll probably run them better than most agencies in Australia. You'll learn more by running ads yourself than you will by ever using an agency. But you have to start with the creative side and testing the creative, because what a lot of people do is they spend $1,000, they put one ad there and it fails. Doesn't work. It works, you just didn't work it. My 4-step process is...
What a world that we live in, right?
Yeah.
It's all going through your fingertips.
Whether you're using an agency or not, if you're running it yourself, looking at the numbers, go and have a look at the creative. Asking is probably the best thing you can do. At the end of the day, someone scrolling through on their Insta feed, the best ad is one that...
Hey there, here's a fun but sad fact for us. Most people who love our content are still not subscribed to the channel. Now, here's the deal that I will make with you. If you can find it in your heart to click on the little subscribe button below, I promise you that we will get better and better guests on this show so that we can interview them for you to give you better and deeper insights from people that have really done some crazy good stuff. And I promise you that we'll be working harder than ever to make this show even better for you. So that's the deal. If you click on that little subscribe button, hit the notifications bell as well, we would be deeply grateful and we'll make a better show for you going forward. I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. What is up, guys? We have a very, very special podcast for you today. This is a guy that really doesn't do this stuff. He is one of 4 partners in a company called Instore, one of Eric's business partners. This is the largest motocross accessories business in Australia with over $100 million a year in sales. Dan spends between $15 and $20 million a year on advertising, half of that in his own businesses, the other half on behalf of his clients that he works with. And that generates around $250 million. That's $250 million in gross sales. Dan is the type of guy that you just normally don't get access to. He's not an author. He's not a speaker. He's a dude that turns up to work every single day, gets into ad accounts and turns traffic into dollars for the businesses that he's working with. We have a deep chat coming up where we dived into what you should be doing right now on socials, whether you should be going into the Google ecosystem, whether you should be going into the Meta ecosystem, what's working now, what are the things that agencies don't tell you, what are the real needle movers when it comes to getting higher performance from your ads, higher performance from your funnels, and better performance in your business overall. And we even dive into some of the realities of what it's like to scale a business from a startup in 2009 to over $100 million a year in sales. What are some of the challenges of leadership, people, having your good days, having your bad days, and so much more. This pod was outstanding right till the end, and in the very last minute, Dan dropped an offer that I think is pretty special. That's not a paid offer, it's just an offer to get help with your ads, which is pretty cool, and he dropped it in the very last minute. So make sure you watch all the way to the end, because there is gold that pops up throughout. So with that being said, we'll see you on the flip side. Remember, subscribe, drop a comment below, and we'll see you soon. I hope you enjoy the episode. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Unemployable. It is wonderful to have you with you. Have you with us. Oh my God, this is going to be a long morning. Thank you for being here, guys. And look, first of all, I just want to be a big shout out to all of you that are watching the show and subscribing and leaving comments. We are reading them every single week. The show is growing week on week on week. We started off with 100 views, 200 views. We're now up to well over 40,000 views and plays across the platforms. And we're only up into, not even done 20 episodes yet. So we're really, really stoked to have the support that we're getting. Thank you so much. James, how are you, my friend?
Mate, I'm gold. It's been a minute since I've been in the hot seat. We've got a great guest today, which I'm super pumped to pull apart his story. But more importantly, I'm more grateful for the cooler weather. We've got a little forced modesty from my mate Eric over here. No longer has he got that linen short thing and whatever that thing was flapping in the breeze previously. So, mate, I can't tell you how impressed I am. And you'll note it's a linen-free day today.
Linen-free.
Still looks linen.
Yeah, well, that's the deceiving thing with those goggles you're wearing.
I was at Zara Menswear the other day, and they had all these shirts that look like doilies, and I thought this must be where Eric shopped. I actually sent a video to you, James.
There is a video coming, Eric, just specifically on doilies, mate. So
I was actually going to wear the shirt today.
you weren't.
I was actually going to wear it.
Yeah.
How are you, mate? You good?
Honestly, I'm excited. I'm very excited to have Dan on. Obviously, I've known him for a very long time, and had to arm wrestle him to get on the show, because he usually doesn't do this stuff. He's a very humble, under the radar kind of guy. So
That's the thing with the show, right? It's trying to get the guys like Dan, and we'll tell you about Dan in a minute, onto the show, because, you know, quite like we've reached out to a couple of guys here on the Gold Coast just recently that we know, and they're just absolutely killing it. And so we said, hey, would you come on the show? And they're like, nah, no, we don't want to come on the show, right? Which I totally understand. And it's quite often the case that people are just doing big things. And Dan is the kind of guy that has been very, very low profile. But honestly, we are really lucky here today, guys, because we have probably one of the top PPC, experts in the country, who's spending, millions and millions of dollars on traffic in his own businesses, and also in the businesses of a small handful of clients that he works with. He's not the type of dude that you're going to see on podcasts very often. The only reason he's really here is because he's Eric's business partner at MX Store. Otherwise he wouldn't really be here. So Dan, thank you for being here, mate. Appreciate it.
My absolute pleasure.
Yeah, you ready to rock and roll?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Looking forward to it.
It's going to be an awesome show. So we'll jump into the numbers in a minute. But guys, honestly, this is going to be really special for any entrepreneur who is doing business on the internet. If you need visitors to your website or to what you're doing, this is the podcast for you. This is going to be the kind of discussion that you won't very often have access to. Even at big speaking events, you might hear a guy like Dan talk for an hour, but you're not going to have the type of discussion we're going to have, because, I've known Dan for a bit as well, but they're mates. And, this is going to be really like sitting around and having a beer with a mate who actually does this shit at a high level, not a presentation. It's going to be the lowdown and real info on what's happening right now. Before we jump into it, I want to thank our sponsor of the show, as always, Early Bird AI. For those of you who still haven't checked out Early Bird, this is the company, EARLI, earlybird.ai is the website. These guys help businesses actually implement artificial intelligence into their business. This is a mega trend. It is one of those times in history, like as entrepreneurs, me more than most of you because I'm a bit older, but we've seen the mobile phone change the world. We saw the internet change the world, and we are currently seeing artificial intelligence change the world. These mega trends don't come along very often. There might be, in an entrepreneur's lifetime, 4 or 5 of these levels of seismic shifts in the way that we do business and the opportunities available to us. And Early Bird is 2 young guys based here on the Gold Coast, not 2 now, they're growing very quickly, but they actually will sit with you for half an hour and show you, whether you're a hairdressing salon, a car dealership, an accommodation provider, how you can use artificial intelligence tools right now, and they'll actually set them up, get them going, train your staff on how to use them, or manage them for you. But the results that they are producing are phenomenal. We've been using it in our own business to manage leads 24/7, generate sales, outreach to our customers, not only more efficiently, but more effectively. They're doing a better job than we could do on our own, and it's all automated and cost saving, and it's freeing up our staff to do higher and better work. So go and talk to the guys at earlybird.ai, get your free audit, which they'll sit on the phone for half an hour and consult with you for free, give you a proposal and see if it makes sense for your business. So earlybird.ai. All right, guys, with that said, let's jump in and get to know Dan Turner. Dan is the one of 3, I think it is, right? Founders of MX Store. Is that right? There's 3 of you, mainly? 4 of you? 4. Okay. Yep. 4 of you. Dan is one of the awesome foursome over at MX Store. So for those of you who don't know MX Store, this is the business that Dan, Eric, and 2 other guys basically own. It is one of Australia's most successful e-commerce stores. They sell motocross parts. You can go to mxstore.com.au. It does over $100 million a year in sales out of Burleigh, with about 170 staff, I think. An incredible success story. And as you can see, good dudes, Eric sort of passes that description, but 2 of them here today, just good dudes that have worked their ass off and scaled it up. So Dan runs all the traffic for MX Store, as well as for some clients that he helps as well. So Dan, welcome to the show. Could you just open by just giving us broadly a very simple frame of what you're doing right now in terms of ad spend, how much the ad spend is for your business, MX, and how much is for others,
Yep.
and how much your revenue is it all generating?
So I spend anywhere between 15 and 20 mil a year between Google and social, so Facebook, Instagram, and across the group of businesses that Eric and I are in, and also clients, to about 250 mil in sales a year.
Okay, so you spend 15 to 20 million on ads, and it turns into about $250 million a year in sales
For the businesses.
for the businesses. Yeah, which is absolutely incredible. What a world that we live in, right?
Yep.
That's all going through your fingertips, throwing money at a screen and producing money at the other side.
The joke is that I throw money at the front of the screen and more money comes out the back.
Yeah.
So turn a dollar into 10.
Yeah, I think that's a skill that a lot of people listening would like to learn. And I'm really keen to jump into this because any business owner listening to this has gone down the path of, they start looking at traffic, they start looking at Google, and they hear words like algorithms and PPC rates and CVR and CS, whatever they are, right?
Yep.
And they go, oh, too hard, I need to run to an agency.
Yep.
So really going to dive in and really ask you some questions about if you're starting out from scratch,
Yep.
where should you start? And also, even further than that, let's jump outside of traffic and talk about how do you assess whether a business is even viable for traffic.
Yep.
So going back before we even start looking at the technicals. And then also we've got listeners on the show that I know have got $5 million businesses, 10 million, 20 million. Get some tips for those guys as well, and maybe the journey you went along. But maybe let's start because you're an interesting cat. It's easy to just go, here's this dude who runs traffic for companies, but you're not really that. What makes I think you really effective is that you're actually an entrepreneur, and you've run, I know you bought a cafe for $1. You've owned a big drop shipping business.
Yep.
Let's start at the beginning, just so people have got an understanding of what makes up Dan Turner. Where did you start your entrepreneurial life? Were you like a unfocused, a ADD kid, or what's the story with you? Where did you begin?
Man, it takes me back. So I'm 42 now. I have never had a job. I've always had my own business in some sense. I started by reading books. So I've read probably 1,000 or so books over the years. At one stage, I was reading 3 books a week, like standing in the bank line. We actually had to stand in the bank line, reading books in the line, which people would look at me and go, you're crazy. What are you doing? My first real start was when I bought a cafe for $1, then sold it 6 months later for 60 grand. Before that though, I actually went to a Brad Sugar's Entrepreneur event when I was 18. I got in. The only reason I got in is because I was 18 and they had like these 5 young tickets for like 2 grand because the event was like 10 grand or something. So I managed to get into that, had to write a whole essay why I wanted to be there. And that was nuts. That was 5 days, really intensive. And the very first thing I did when I came back is I took what they had taught and went, okay, let's go and have a look at 100 businesses. So I had like a 1-page document that broke down, sales, margin, customers, opening times, all the basic stuff for all businesses. I went to 100 businesses, filled out 100 forms, and eventually made a handful of offers, and one of them was this cafe. So that was my start. I then went into health food stores. So I had 2 health food stores. I was really good at growing businesses back then. This is when I was 21. I had no clue how to manage them or run them or systems or processes. And so I tripled the health food stores in a matter of about 6 months. And then within 1.5 years, I was like $500,000 in the hole. And I learned the lesson of what the difference between abdication and delegation, right? Giving someone a system, a process, a how to do this, how to do something versus, hey, you go and do this. And I have no idea whether you're going to do it successfully or not. I then went in. This is when I found the online space. So when I was after the lesson of the health food stores, I'd found out about this online stuff, and I'm like, there's got to be something here. And so 14 hours a day for quite a few weeks, quite a few months, I just learned. I read everything I could, and I still remember. I wish I had a photo or had kept the photo, but I still remember with my wife and I were in Franklin's. If those
I remember
old,
Franklin's.
Yeah, Franklin's. Yeah. The black and white.
As
black
a
and
kid
white.
in Queanbeyan, I used to buy a canned drink and a Mars bar from Franklin's
Yep.
because it was 27 cents for a can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I remember going to Franklin's, and we had a trolley, and we had 2 dogs at the time, and I took a photo because all we could buy was the dog food, like maybe some tins of tuna and maybe some rice. Yeah. And that was it. And so my wife and I was very fortunate then. My wife, she did 3 jobs at the time to support me doing the online journey. Within a 3-month space, this was when affiliate marketing and AdSense were big back then. I built 100 websites with a business partner and basically created a full-time income or a full-time living income within 3 months. That was my start into the online space. Over the next course of period, I had software as a service businesses. I got into the education space, and I was doing speaking on stage. It's been a very long time since I've done anything like this. Thanks to Eric for bringing me in. But in 2008, I got my start or started to get a handle on e-commerce, right? I had an agency at the time. We had 60 people over in the Philippines, 60 people over in India, doing agency work. And I'm like, why are we doing all of the work for these e-com businesses? Why don't we start our own? And that was when Jake came to me and was like, I got this idea for dirt bikes, selling dirt bikes online. I'm like, you're crazy. Like, that sounds great, but who's going to buy parts and accessories online? No one was doing it at the time. And so we started in 2009. And from there, I moved away from the agency back then. I went all invested into e-com, and where I had MX at the time. We started it. I stepped out of the business. I had a sheds business that helped grow to $5 million a year. Learned a lot of lessons there. Learned lesson of margin, how important margin is in a business. Learn the importance of having the right people around you as well. I was very fortunate, even though it was a really challenging time. I was fortunate to have the key suppliers I was working with at the time. They helped me get through to where I am now, right? And I would love to touch on the importance of people in this session. Yeah. But yeah, from there I went all in e-com and back into MX and going back into agency land.
Okay, so that's amazing.
It's a long story.
Let's unpack some of that though, because I think there's a lot of really valuable lessons and hints in there for young people watching this. You basically didn't waste, like, we all have resources in life, and when you're young, you have no financial resources, but you have lots of minutes, and I call it time. I call them time billionaires, right? They have billion seconds, whereas older guys have a lot less than that. Yep. You invested that time into books, reading, and you built 100 sites. Now, that's incredible. Yep. And you were going to Brad Sugar seminars where you learned to buy businesses from those. Funny story. I actually went to the same seminar. Yep. And bought a hairdressing salon in Sydney for $1. The same thing. Yeah, right. As a result of going to the Brad Sugar thing. But what he didn't tell you was that businesses for $1 are usually shit.
There's usually a reason why you pick them up for free.
Yeah. That's right. Yep. And I learned that reason. I owned that thing for 6 months and finally offloaded it to one of my employees. But I learned, right? Like you either get a lesson or you get a win. So I got a lesson. But so you leveraged and used your time really, really wisely and built 100 websites, did the work. And that's such an incredibly valuable thing. There's no accounting for actually building 100 websites and actually starting this sheds drop shipping business and doing all this stuff. How much of those early lessons about focus and discipline are still, hallmarks of what you do today?
It's everything. Like, I talk about compounded knowledge. Yes. Right. And every experience you have, every book you read, every seminar you go to, every person you talk to, there's nuggets or things you can take away that then compound and help you in the future. And so I was very fortunate to have a clear direction on what I wanted. I knew that I wanted to be in business. Right? I didn't know what business. I had no trade or skill or anything like that. But the years have progressively helped me so that when I have to make decisions now, I can draw on this 25 years or whatever it's been of experience and knowledge and lessons I like that. You have a win or you have a lesson. But it's the compounded knowledge that matters, and it's taken a long time to get here. But it helps with the as you progress in life, when you come across more complex problems, it makes it easier to answer or simpler to answer those questions or to solve those problems.
Yeah, it's so true. It's that compounded things you're learning today. You will not. As Steve Jobs said, you're only going to connect the dots looking backwards.
Yep.
But I know there's lessons I learned from the hair salon that are probably somewhere in the makeup of 30 years of being in business.
Yep.
That you carry forward.
Like never dye your hair blonde ever again. Yeah. Is that one of them, maybe?
Oh man, seriously. I mean, I learned some seriously interesting lessons. I had a hairdresser that would just literally rip open the banking and just take out $50 so he could go to the pub.
Yep.
Just all sorts of stuff. I was in Neutral Bay in Sydney on Military Road.
Speaking of those 100 sites, was that back in the days of when you'd rank on by the domain name of the keyword and rank it, and that would be the AdSense, or were you then actually running traffic to those sites as well? If you just
what's funny is like now, like I spend 15 to 20 mil a year on paid, right? What's funny is I still remember when Google was 5 cents a click, and I still remember the thought going through my head: why would I pay 5 cents when I can get that traffic for free? Like, so I got really good at SEO earlier in the day, and I used to think that people that did pay were nut jobs, because why would you pay for it if you could do it yourself? So yes, back then it was keyword optimized in the title, content optimized, like super algorithmically based SEO stuff that does not work these days, but used to work great back then.
So those 100 sites, right? I could imagine all the different types of sites that you created.
Yeah.
Give me the 2 top craziest, funniest that the audience would laugh at that you were trying to sell.
Man, all
it's like
so,
you're in a safe space.
Yeah. So
You're in a safe space. Right. There's only going to be about 50,000 people listening to this.
So there used to be a keyword tool that you would literally just go and rank by highest value keyword. And there was some wild stuff in there. There was health-related terms. There was, menopause-based stuff. There was a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm not proud of this because it's now more than ever, content is the most important thing. I'm not going to say I didn't go after all those terms, but there was some pretty rough, sexual orientated, health-related stuff that was content generated that really I shouldn't have.
James would have been your number one client.
Yeah.
While we're here,
the one I'm thinking about, James would have been the number one.
While we're here, let's pull on that thread a bit harder.
We are now in the world of OnlyFans. How bad can it be?
Yeah, but I'm assuming there'd be some funny sites, right?
Look, I don't remember like exactly what the sites are. Literally, it was a process-based, decision, not a I love this space. I think this is a great space. If you're talking about erectile dysfunction and you're getting content written about it, it's not fantastic.
That's definitely Eric's thing.
I mean, it's Eric's thing, but
you said something's come back full circle. That's it.
So in short though, so you were basically creating websites that did what? They ranked and then you sold products, or just bounced those people off to affiliate offers?
So they ranked, and either AdSense is where you'd have like the ads on your website, and people click on it, you get paid, or it was affiliate based stuff. So there was a point where I was selling certain pills or promoting certain pills and making a decent amount of income from sites that were promoting.
This is like, back in the day when ClickBank was really huge. You go to ClickBank and you could see all your offers and the conversion rates and the landing pages. And so you were just sort of doing that and really learning the art of getting attention at the right price and then converting it on the back end.
So what that taught me is that I used to think that the internet was used for 2 things. One we all know, and the other was for online games.
Yes.
Right. What I learned was that there's attention readily available if you know how to get it. And so that attention or traffic can then be commercialized and turned into dollars. So what those early lessons taught me was that the art of getting traffic is the impetus to an online business. It's the very start point, right? Of getting momentum. So without traffic, you got nothing. You could have the best product, the best business, the best everything, but if it's in the middle of the desert, no one knows about it, it's irrelevant.
Do you feel, Dan, like just before we dive into details, and I'm just sort of trying to think, where do we jump into this? Because there's so much that I want to learn from you today, but do you think the opportunities today are as good as the opportunities back in 2008 and 9? I mean, traffic's obviously a lot more expensive, but with the right thing, could you still build $100 million e-com business like you have with MX today if you know what you're doing?
They're just different. So, like I was saying to James earlier, one of the businesses I'm working with, I won't say the industry or the brand, but in 6 months we've built from 0 to a 10 mil run rate in 6 months.
Now.
Right? Yeah, now last 6 months.
Okay.
And that's with a product that is, ordered from a factory that, they're selling the product before it even gets here. So the answer is yes, but it's the how you go about doing that matters. It takes more effort and awareness, but it's just different now.
And that's the question that Dan is, and I had off cameras about my business about, is it an e-com or is it a lead gen campaign? And it's an e-com product, but it doesn't sell without an interjection of a lead gen campaign, then an inquiry, then for an on sell. So that was the difference we're talking about when we're saying it's still essentially e-com with a lead gen infusion.
Yeah, like if you're doing lead gen, like you're either selling a product or a service, right? And you're either with e-com, you're selling the product direct on the site. Someone's handing over the cash, you're shipping it out, and away you go. If the product is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 grand, right? Then it's a considered purchase. The person's not. There are some people though that are going to shell out 10 grand on their credit card over the thing. Like I remember the first time in the sheds business where a lady spent 16 grand, right, for me to send a shed. I'm like, I would never spend 16 grand back then. I'd never spend 16 grand online. Now, if you're selling a $10,000 product, the sales step in the process, it's still e-commerce. It's just another step in the process. And in some ways, it's actually better to do it that way because you have another dial to tweak. You have another lever to pull. You can optimize the sales process, not just the online side.
Mm-hmm. So let's before we get into the technicals around how you're generating traffic, what's working now, what's changed from what worked in the past. A lot of our audience is either running or trying to run and sell a product online, or they're thinking of it. What are the broad strokes that if somebody came to you and said, Dan, just tell me before we talk about lead generation, what would be the broad strokes that would describe an ideal product or service that you're thinking of launching from a traffic point of view? Because so many people go, I've got this great invention. The problem is it's $10 retail, and they go, but I buy it for $2, and I'm like, yeah, but you've only got $8 in total gross margin. So from a traffic guy point of view, and I say I want to scale to a $10 or $100 million business, what sort of foundational things do I need to look for in a product, and what do I get bonus points for?
So don't first think of the product, think of the customer. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, what I mean is you could have a $100 product that you're selling once every 3 months, right? So you're making $400 a year from that customer. And the lifetime value of that customer might be 10 years. So that value is $4,000. Or you could sell one product once for $3,000, which is better. I would contend that it's probably the $100 product sold every 3 months because you're building a sustainable model as opposed to a one-time transaction. But so the first point is the customer. What is the value that you're going to be delivering to that person over a period of time? The next step is the margin.
You mean in dollar terms?
In dollar value.
Okay, so you're talking about what's the dollar value of the transaction over time? Because
what that means is that if you're selling a $3,000 product, you have an acquisition cost associated with getting that customer, right? That might be $1,000 or $500. If I know that I'm going to sell to one person over 10 years every 3 months, right, I can spend $500 for that customer. I'm putting my first 15 months worth of acquisition or sales into the acquisition of that customer, and I know that I'm going to bankroll the rest of it. So the first thing is the value that you're able to deliver. The second is the margin. When I was talking about the sheds before, I learned the lesson of margin, and I think I was running about 17%. Sales is sales is vanity, sales is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Margin is the thing that you can spend, right? Or GP is the thing you can spend.
So when you say 17%, do you mean gross? Describe that.
Gross profit, meaning if I sold something for $1,000, I only got to keep 170.
And what expenses have been taken out of that?
So the product cost itself was $830.
Wow. So you had $170 to go advertise, run the company. That's gross margin,
correct,
not net margin.
No, that's gross margin.
That actually sounds gross.
It is. It was
17%.
But that's where the lessons come in, right?
Right.
Now, so if someone's who's starting, they've got this $100 product, $10 product. If you haven't got a 50 or a 60 or a 70% GP, it's not, or the potential to have a 50, 60, 70% GP. Sometimes you have to start a business because the only thing you've got is you're going down the road to a contract manufacturer and you're getting 30%, but you know that you can get 70 later in the future, and that's okay. So first is the value, second is the margin. The last part is your acquisition cost, right? How much does it cost you to acquire a customer? And a lot of people don't know this. Like a lot of people starting out, they're like, well, I don't know, I haven't started. My lesson is that I know nothing. The market tells me everything, right? I've been wrong so many times in thinking that a campaign's going to do great and it bombs. I've been wrong so many times where I think a campaign's going to do bad and it's amazing. The example I give is I remember running when we were first sort of ramping up our socials with MX. I had this ad, right? And there's this little kid and a video of a little kid on a scooter doing revving the engine to a dubstep background video. And I'm like, I'm just going to run it, right? It was a post that we did. I ran it, got a 40 to 1. Now, why did it get a 41? I have a theory. Like my theory is that it's relatable to our customer base, right? Tradies, people that ride dirt bikes, think it's funny. And so when they see that or they saw that ad, they go, ad, MX Store. So next time they buy, they're going to come back to us. So the piece of that is that your customer acquisition cost has to be within I'd say about a third of your margin. If you can't acquire a customer for a third of your margin, you got problems.
Of your gross margin?
Gross margin, yes.
Okay. So let's just pause on this for a minute because this is the real foundational stuff here. So when you say 40 to 1, you mean if you spend $1 on advertising, you generate $40 in sales?
Yep.
In gross sales?
Gross sales.
So what you just said there, a third of your margin. So if you're selling a product for $100 and your gross margin is, say, 50%,
yep,
you got $50, you need to acquire the customer for a third of that 50.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Roughly.
So you need to be able to acquire the customer. And that's assuming that there's no other back-end sale or?
Well, that's assuming the value of what your value is for that customer.
Oh, the total
Correct.
lifetime value is what you're talking about.
And the thing with that too, when you're first starting, so an example B, so we've had MX for 15 years, right? We then started Fight HQ. Fight HQ run rate is sort of 8 to 10 mil now, and that's over 3 years. And then ATV Store, which is our latest kind of domain that we've done, in 18 months, it's at 5 run rate. So the speed of which we go about this is faster. Now, why is that happening? When you're first starting a business, you have to disproportionately allocate more capital into ads than anything else, right? It's branding, it's getting your product out there, it's testing, it's measuring. So it's a third for the health of the business, but you might put 60% of your GP, 70% of your GP, because you don't have any operating costs when you're first starting out. It's just you. You're picking and packing in, you're doing the customer service, you're taking a small wage, right? And every allocation of capital should be going into advertising.
Mm. Now, and this is what you said there is very, very key, but you can only do it because you know your lifetime value of a customer, you know your numbers and all that sort of stuff.
Yes.
So there's a couple of things here. There's a huge variance in performance based on the creative, right?
Massive.
So you can have an ad that converts at 1 to 1 for every $1 you spend, you generate $1,
yes,
or it can be worse.
Yes.
And then you can come out with this kid who's revving a motorbike, and all of a sudden, we see this all the time in marketing. We do it with our thumbnails on the channel.
Yep.
We split chest thumbnails, and sometimes like you're dead certain that and then you're completely wrong, right? Like the only truth is the market, like you said,
yes,
and not to have your ego involved. But for the average punter listening to this, the question they're going to be having was, how do I know what my acquisition cost is? Because every market's different, every product's different. So what we used to say to people, and I'd love you to sort of chime in on this, is say, you need to get to testing as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible to find out, test like 50 ads, different offers. The only way to know is to actually run ads.
So in the early stages of business, if you haven't generated a sale yet, you have to allocate a percentage, you have to allocate a dollar amount to paid, not knowing what your sales is going to be. So if you're working a job, you're doing a side hustle, you're getting your business started, and you can save $1,000 that you're going to put into ads, that's your testing dollars, right? Tests don't happen without spend at the end of the day. And to your point, content and conversion rate are the things that I'm kind of banging on about in the businesses that I'm in. But content and conversion rate are the two variables that are going to have the biggest impact over this next, probably 2 years. So when you've got that $1,000, don't just put one ad behind it, right? If you're testing on socials, chuck 4. Test images, test a video. If you're scared of being on video, just do an iPhone. Do a video of the product. Do a video of the unboxing process. Do a video of you in the warehouse picking and packing. Do a video of how it works, right? So, but you have to start with the creative side and testing the creative, because what a lot of people do is they spend $1,000, they put one ad there and it fails. And they go, doesn't work. Well, it works, you just didn't work it. My 4-step process, I guess you'd call it, it just comes back to the scientific method, but it's analysis, hypothesis, execute, review. Analysis, hypothesis, execute, review. And so what that means is, analysis is if you have data, then you can analyze the data. If you don't, you're going, what does my market want, right? Your hypothesis then is, what am I going to deliver that market, right? What is the creative going to look like? What should I be putting up as my ads? You execute on that, and then you review the results.
Where could I get analysis? Like, I know myself, Eric and I are working on a product at the moment that is a consumable men's self-care product, let's say. We go to things like High Smile, who have got a consumable, product, and we go to their ads library on Facebook, and we look at all their creative, and that alone is just such a really worthwhile exercise, because you get to see the breadth, and maybe you can talk about ads library from your perspective, but we get to see all their current and past ads. And it shows you the diversity of ads and how they're testing so many things. And what's really revealing about it is, you have in your head, they're $1 billion company, let's say. You think, oh, they must have all this fancy. A lot of it is like really raw, organic, but they're just testing. And then I'm sure that there's these standout ads that they then double down traffic on.
Absolutely.
Is that sort of what you would do if you were starting out? I'm sure people look at MX now to do that, who are your competitors, but how would you do it if you were starting?
We still do the same.
Yeah.
That's the point. You're throwing mud at the wall, and you keep what sticks and you get rid of what doesn't. And sometimes you're revisiting the stuff that didn't, because what didn't work 2 years ago might work now. What didn't work 6 months ago might work now, right? You might have missed the mark. On your point there, going to a competitor, like doing your competitive research, going to your competitors, going through to their Facebook page, go to page transparency, go to ads library, go through their ads, go through their buying process, the sales process, go to their website, buy their product, have a look at the emails you get, have a look at the process they take you through. Do you get a follow-up call? Learn their funnel. Like that alone, like I still spend time. I don't look at a lot of AU sites really, because there's not a lot of great, what I would consider great e-com players in AU, but I spend time going over into the UK and the US and seeing what the UK and the US guys are doing, right? How are they, sending customers through their journey? What are they doing?
Now I understand why you have those erectile dysfunction pills there, mate. That's what you were just checking out the funnel.
And all brands. He's got 10 brands there.
They're just shaking behind the desk here.
On that model where you can go now and get a head start, back in 2007, 8, 9, you couldn't see, there was no such thing as ads transparency.
No.
So you had to go and actually be the creative genius, throw up the 10 different ads and literally work it out for yourself. Now you got such a head start. With Google's got their own keyword competitor analysis product now as well. So, I mean, when you get like an ad, just for the audience listening as well, when you have this runaway seller like a 40-1, then you'd grab that, pull it apart, then double down and create 40 variations of the 40-1 to try and improve on that.
Well, it depends on your budget, right? And so if you're getting a 40-1, remove the rest, increase your budget, allocate more budget into that, because your 40-1 is going to go to 30, it's going to go to 20, it's going to go to 15. And that's okay, because that's the way it's designed to work. It's designed to, as you scale and spend more in an ad, you will get a lower return.
They call it ad fatigue, right?
Well, so ad fatigue to me is different. This is scaling ads to the point at which they are the profitability break even. Because I've had ads that are still running for the last 2 years, right? 2 or 3 years.
Is that the one I'm in? You know that one I did?
Every chance, man. Fucking hell.
I'm over here, guys. I think the point here is a lot of beginners think, I'm going to make an ad an ad. And I'm like, dude, no, like we've got an operator coming in to run this business, and we made it really clear, dude, this is an ads business. It's going to be daily content production, split testing. It's constant because the attention span of people, this,
So these are the variables you want to test. You want to test the creative, right? Or sorry, the modality of creative, image, multi-image, video, right? You want to test the content within that creative, right? So if you find that video works well, like every audience is different, and sometimes video might pop better. Images might pop better. Still images work really well for us, flat lays, that sort of thing. Next level you want to test is the copy, right? The copy within the ad. So if you find a creative that works really well, yes, throw out 3 different variations of it. The next layer of testing is the audiences, right? So, and we're talking social specifically here, but when you're talking about socials, you might find that you get a 15-to-1 targeting someone that's, directly interested in your thing, but you can still probably get a 7-to-1 that in an audience that's tangential to your current audience. So if it's, it might be men over 50, right? You might test men 40 to 50. You might test women with, women in the 50s. Why? Because they're sick of seeing their husbands, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So it's testing different things to get the maximum result for what you can spend. And what I would say is that every dollar you spend, you want to maximize the value you're able to return from that. So if you've only got $1,000 budget, spend it all into the thing that's working. And if it's not working, test.
So modality, copy, and audiences.
Yes.
Modality, you said an image ad. So you're talking about just an ad, and then it's got a headline and some copy. And then you said multi-image, which means you got is it a carousel?
Yep.
Yep. And then you've got a video ad.
Yep.
So test all 3 of those.
Yes.
And then you test the copy, which is the headline and the copy.
And you're testing the creative style.
Right.
So video A might perform better than video B.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think people have this obsession.
Hang on. Sorry, Eric.
Sorry.
The last part there.
Audiences.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, just modality, copy, and audiences.
Yep.
And then
Yes.
yeah, and this is the stuff you've got to become obsessed over and attack, right?
Yeah, you for me, I'm able to do what I do at the level I do it in because I have 1, incredible business partners, 2, incredible people that are within the business doing their roles. Like right now I'm sitting here and I know that the warehouse is shipping orders, doing a perfect job. They're kicking ass doing what they do. And I can get the best results of what I do because of the team, because of the people. My point in that is that when you're first starting, ads is like nicknames like NOS and accelerator and turbo and whatever. But the engine of the business has to run, and then ads or traffic is what fuels it to grow faster.
If we were to walk into MX Store today, just to give us a bit of a picture of like that's the end game. If we were to walk in there today and go into the ads department, how is it split up? Like, is it like Google PPC over here and then social over here? What does the engine look like? Like, how many people are there? Who's doing what? Are you photographing and videoing on site? Like, what's happening at MX Store?
There's some element of trade pieces here, but
yeah,
when I go to conferences and stuff, I am always getting this response from people that have similar sized businesses. We got 3 people in e-commerce, me and 2 crew. Like, they're my right-hand guys. I've trained them. I've taught them. Like, I lean on them very heavily. We have 3 in e-com.
Are these the dudes that are actually sitting there clicking and programming and setting up the stuff?
Yeah. And myself, like, I'm still in the weeds. Like, But
are they doing the graphics and are they doing the
No, so to your point, there's design,
okay,
right, which is a part of it. But design can be like some of our best ads were anyone in the business going out of the warehouse, taking a iPhone shot of a pair of boots sitting on the warehouse floor. Come back in, hey, here's a shot. Let's get an ad up.
So no, that's what I want to get at, because people in their head think, oh, they must have, the best photographers and all this stuff. And you're like, no, like, this is gritty hustle that's still happening.
Yeah.
And also that point before, you're talking about an agency model where you had 60 people offshore. So from that comment to running a $100 million company with 3 people.
3 people in e-com. Yeah. So we have amazing media crew, right? Guys that go out to the track, shoot the shot, shoot the riders. Like I'm very blessed to have a set of creative guys and girls that are just incredible. I guess to your point, don't let that stop you from starting though.
Yeah.
Don't let that stop you. Like don't wait for the creative guys to get the image if you can go out there and take it yourself. Right? If you've got an agency like creative agency and it's going to take you 2 weeks to get an ad back, you've got the product. Go take it out, go put it on the floor, take a good shot, get an ad up.
Yeah.
I mean, we battle with this, with the real estate business, because obviously real estate's a different industry. It's a very polished industry. So everyone thinks they need to have 100% professional $1,000 video, to go and put content out. And Dan always smashes us going, man, just give me anything. Grab an iPhone, right? And just do a video. Don't worry about being polished. And you know what? Based on those ones, those are the ones that convert the best.
So,
and it's unbelievable to think that, right?
No,
but
I
the
get
real
it.
and the raw.
I see it when I might get Richard in post. Just make a note to throw this up in post because I know I've got the TV working today. But in post, can you just throw over the screen the ads library for High Smile and just play a few videos as we're talking here, because you will see that exactly that they've literally got their crew like on over and hey guys, how's that V34 thing going? And like it feels real. It builds trust in some ways.
Are you comfortable with me sharing the numbers from that? Remember that test we did with Julian?
Yeah.
So, example of this, right? We had a professional agency do an ad or a video for the property business, right?
Eric's property business.
Yeah. And so with that, we went, cool, let's have an iPhone shot on the side, right? 30 seconds, the person in front and the camera, let's run both side by side. Let's see what happens. We had a 3x engagement of the 30-second iPhone shot that cost nothing, that took bugger all time to do, right? And a 3x reduction in cost. Now, why is that important? Because if all our other competitors doing their professional videos, they're spending 3 times more than we are to acquire a customer, to acquire a lead, just because we took a 30-second iPhone shot.
Can you just give us context? Because when I'm sitting here, I want to try and understand, what are you saying in the video? Like you sell property projects,
Yeah,
right?
it'll just be features and benefits of a particular project, right?
So you'll just have a guy going, hey, we're here with, have you seen our latest project?
Yeah.
He's got a phone.
Like someone like Julian's like yourself, you guys are very good in front of camera, right? You don't need a lot of script.
Yeah.
You can go, okay, ready, go. The guy's been doing it for 25 years, right? So he can just sit in front of a camera and talk about property. Whereas other people, they need to get a script and they need to memorize it for 5 days. And then we go and spend $1,000 on a professional video. That doesn't come across.
No.
So what you're saying is you had one ad that's like, welcome to the Palm, which is this new development in Broadbeach. And it's like watching a realestate.com video. And then the other one is like Eric going, hey guys, what's up? It's Eric here from Sutherland Group. We've just got this really cool project. Is that what we're talking about here?
That's exactly what we're talking
polished
about. That's how basic it is.
versus relatable.
Yeah.
Right.
Edited,
Be relatable.
edited. Fully edited video that you're paying $1,000 for versus a non-edited video and it could be the same 60 second. We're talking about a 60-second video, right?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people get intimidated by that stuff, and that's why I'm acting dumb because I really want people to understand what you guys are doing. You're running multi-million-dollar businesses, and you're running ads on iPhones still.
The point of it is don't stop yourself thinking you have to be better than you are. Just start. And if that's holding an iPhone and recording something for your product or your business or service or lead or whatever it is, do it. Chuck it up. Get some money behind it. That's your start point.
Yeah, I think people build this wall. Like we had Andrew Hermes on here, and he's doing $15 million a year, netting 5, right? Which is bananas, right? From his e-com site.
8 employees.
8 employees, right? And no offense to Andrew, but I look at the websites and I'm like, my ADD kicks in. And I'm like, they're okay, but they're not super polished.
Yep.
But there's a degree of trust that comes with it. And what am I to say, man? The guy's banking $5 million net, right? And it's just working. So it's important to test, not build it up too much. When you're starting out, Dan, would you recommend, because we've all got agency horror stories sitting here, right?
Yep.
And would you recommend that people go and take a course and start with okay, because I watched Simon Beard talk from Culture Kings recently.
Yeah.
And Simon is adamant that you've got to learn to do your own ads
Yes.
sooner or later, and sooner being better. He said, it ain't that hard. You sit in front of a computer, you do a little course, you start clicking every button and you figure it out. Would you agree with that?
100%.
And just start spending $10 and then go, oh, that's how that works. Then getting the data and adjusting and doing this.
You'll learn more by running ads yourself and testing and looking at the data than you will by ever using an agency. I would contend if you spent 40 hours 1 week, right? Google how to run Facebook ads, watch a few YouTube videos. You'll probably run them better than most agencies in Australia, at least. Your start point is there. Learn how to do it, and that analysis, hypothesis, execute, review. Get started. Allocate some capital behind it. Put some dollars behind it. Test, measure, improve. Test, measure, improve.
Why are so many of us business owners and people that, entrepreneurs, why are they so resistant on doing that? Because like I look at that and I go, all right, cool. All right, what ads company am I going to use? Yeah. Right?
Because you're too rich, Eric.
Right? No,
You're just like, oh, fuck this. I'm just going to pay someone.
Yeah, because you got Denny.
Yeah. I mean, but
There's an
I
element
do
of
have
that.
I do have Dan, and that's amazing. That's why I keep him very, very, very close. But honestly, I look at the AI space in similar fashion. I think it's going to be the same thing. Like, yeah, you can go learn about it, but it's overwhelming, right?
Yep.
But is it because it's overwhelming, or just people lazy?
So
or
this is talking about people that are starting,
yes,
right? They're time rich. People that are starting, they're time rich. Like me, when I was starting out, I spent 14 to 16 hours a day reading, learning, going through forums, figuring it out. When you are at a different stage, your mindset may have to shift. I still am in the weeds in MX in the ad accounts today, right? And I don't think that'll ever change. One, I love it, but two, I'm yet to find an agency that I can trust to do my work.
yeah, but you know what the difference is? I've known you for a long time now. We've been on many dinners. We've been on, weekend away with the boys and stuff like this. And Dan always has his backpack and his laptop everywhere. There's been times where we're sitting having dinner, and next thing you know, he's like, "Oh, I gotta check something out," and he literally pulls up his laptop at the table in the restaurant, and he's working on ads for half an hour.
But you're spending $500,000 a week.
Yeah,
and that's like you need the nuclear football.
But this is the finger on the pulse that he has at all times.
Also, if you go back to like you and I were talking off camera about a colleague of yours, probably one of the only in industry that you respect. I went away and thought in 2007 I'll do a 3-day Google Ads boot camp, and it blew my fucking head apart. Yeah. And I'm fairly analytical. So with that, over that period of time, just for listeners out there, with the advent of technology and advancements, has it become easier for someone starting out to run a Google Ads account or a Facebook account when it comes into testing, comes into audiences? Is it a lot easier than it was back then?
So I would say it's easier to start, it's harder to master, right? And back then you had to be able to master the craft, right? You had to be able to master the craft to be good at it. Now you can start, like Facebook makes it so easy to get a campaign going. They make it really simple to go, oh, I should choose this audience over this audience. I'm going to use this creative versus this creative. Google has moved, much to my distaste, but Google has moved similar to that model, right? Where you can throw up a campaign, get things running, set the return you want, and let Google do its thing. I fundamentally disagree with it because of the nature of what Google is, but it's easier to start. And so if you've got a business where you're selling a $100 product and you've got a 70% margin, you can create a campaign in Google today, put a $30 budget behind it, and set a return of 300% and let Google do its thing.
They call it Performance Max,
yeah,
right?
PMax. Yeah, I hate it.
So let's start with this high level question there. What kind of businesses should use Google, PPC, and what kind of and a Google network and YouTube and things like that? So you've got PPC, which is pay-per-click, people have searched, and then you've got YouTube. So you can break down the Google ecosystem for us and who should use it and when, and then break down the meta. And then I suppose TikTok's out to the side at the moment. But if you could sort of break down in your thoughts on each of those, let's call it 3 main ecosystems, the Google ecosystem, the Meta ecosystem, and TikTok.
Cool. So I would combine Meta and TikTok because at the end of the day, a social platform is a social platform.
Okay.
Right. And when you think about, I'll just say Google and socials, but Google is an intent-based engine, right? Someone is going there with something in their mind of what they're interested in. Socials is I'd liken it to you're walking through the mall with your mates, you're not sure if you're going to go into a shop, but if something catches your eye, it's like, oh, I like those shoes. I'm going to go and have a look, right? So I view Google as intent-based commercial interest. Socials is about building a brand. Now, what businesses should use what? I always believe you should use both. What differs is the percentage that you're allocating to each, right? So if you've got $1,000 and let's say you've got one product, right, or a handful of products, and you're trying to build a brand, I would be allocating 70-80% of my capital, maybe even 100% of the starting points, into socials. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to gather an audience, you're trying to gather and build a brand so that people have awareness. On Google side, give me an example of a category, product, brand, whatever. I'll use the actual real example. Do you use yours, James?
Sure. Not really, actually.
Okay, use mine. Use my electric toilets. I run the electric toilets pretty much exclusively on Google.
Perfect.
Because of what it is.
Yep.
It's not like you can interrupt somebody and say, "Hey, would you like a $2,000 electric toilet?" on socials. That's my view.
Yeah.
So I spend 100% on people who are actually searching for camping toilets, disability toilets, whatever.
So when someone searches for camping toilets, you're doing an opportunity switch, right? You have a product that's in the market, but when someone's searching for a camping toilet, they might be thinking about a portable thing that may not be the greatest for their need, but your product's better, right? If you're bidding on camping toilets, you might find that your return on them is a 2-to-1, right? But electric toilets, that might be a 5-to-1.
Yeah, because it's exactly what it is.
It's exactly what they're looking for, and you're the only one in Australia that does it, or you're a few handful of brands that do that product.
Yeah.
So, if I would contend that for you to help build your category, right, to help build your brand, you will find that if you allocate capital into socials, right, along with Google, you're going to increase awareness for the product. Right. It's not just about getting a return on Facebook. It's about building awareness for your brand. And one thing I always say is you should always have a brand. So if you're like early bird, you should always have early bird as an exact match in Google, right, bidding on that keyword, because what you're measuring is the growth of the brand.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. So how fast is my brand growing? Like, so Flight, for example, we've had 147% year-on-year growth in the Flight brand, right? Because of all the things we do. So you can spend money in socials, do nothing in Google, and get a good return from Google because you're seeing your brand grow because of the activity you're doing in socials. So they're symbiotic in nature, and what matters is how much you're allocating to each.
That's interesting. See, I was too much of a tight ass with socials, because what I was doing, I was like, I'm running these ads on my electric toilets on socials, and people are watching it, but nobody's buying anything, right? And I'm like, socials doesn't work, I'm not doing it. But I've got the wrong mindset about it, is what you're saying. Too impatient.
Yes and no. Like there are times where if you've got a constrained budget, you're allocating that capital into the thing that's providing the highest return.
Yeah, we get 10x on our Google ad spend. So we spend $1, we get 10 times back.
Perfect.
And that works, but there's only so much market in search.
Thank you. And so what do you do when there's only so much market in search?
Build the market socials.
Build the market.
Right. You build your brand and you build the market. It's the only way you can do it. And this is the challenge with Google, is if there's a search of 1,000 people searching for something, coming back to picking a product or whatever else, if there's only 1,000 people searching for that product, that's your market cap. That's all you've got.
And if it's not growing, or if it's decreasing, you've got a decreasing market cap.
You've got a problem. And so the only way you can influence it, you can't change Google. You can't go all of a sudden, there's 1,000 people searching for this thing in Google, and next month there's going to be 1,200. You can't control it. You can't control it. You can influence it. And the way you influence it is by building the brand and building the category. So you might not want, with socials on the toilet side, you might not drive a return, but what you're looking for is an increase in category searches. You're looking for an increase in brand searches.
So when I look at something like High Smile, I go, well, they sell stuff for $40 or $50. Everybody's got teeth, mostly, except for in certain parts of Australia.
Yep.
But most people have got teeth. Most people want them to be whiter. So that chance of actually getting somebody to buy, because it's so much cheaper, everybody has teeth and everybody wants them whiter, is probably much higher on socials to actually transact right up front.
It's a generic product that matches a wide set of audience.
Yes.
So your availability there, but I guarantee they're doing Google as well. Like they bidding on teeth whitening, but teeth whitening itself as a term, massively expensive. So they might not be able to convert or make that dollar count.
For the average punter out there, we've talked about running pay-per-click on Google. We've talked about socials and building that audience up. if you can, in layman's terms, explain retargeting. If you're getting a click from Google, it doesn't convert on Google, and chasing around the internet and putting other display ads up on another social platform, just break that down for us and the effectiveness of it. Is it still valid and relevant, or is it starting to wash out?
No, it's still relevant. I view that as just another subset of an audience. And so if you think of, there's been a lot of like top funnel, mid funnel, bottom funnel, whatever. To me, it's people who know your brand, people who don't know your brand, and people who bought with you, right? If for people who either know your brand or have purchased from you, that's where retargeting comes into play. But it's just another audience, and you will get the highest return. Sorry, the probability is very high. You'll get a higher return from your remarketing audiences than any other set.
So for people who don't know what remarketing is or retargeting is, it means they've clicked on an ad before, they visited your website,
Yes.
your website dropped a cookie onto
Yes.
their browser, and now everywhere they go on the internet,
Yes.
an ad gets served to them on either the Google or Facebook.
Correct. And whether that's socials, whether it's Google, like at the end of the day, Google has your display and your YouTube for that stuff, and socials is just the audiences that you set.
So can we just circle back? Let's go through those ecosystems. So Google, who should be using Google? Who should be using Meta and TikTok? Like, what are how should we be thinking about these if we're starting our brand?
So if you're building a brand, right, you should be allocating more of your capital into socials.
Okay.
Right. If you've got a set of products, like maybe 3 products, right, they're unknown, your best place to build that is going to be on socials, right? And when I say socials, I also mean YouTube as well, right? Not just your Meta and your TikToks. If you're doing a range play, right? So for MX, range speed service, we have Australia's largest range. We pride ourselves on our speed. If you order today before 2:00, you're getting it probably tomorrow, right? And we love our customers, right? We give great service. The range piece is ensuring that we have, when someone searches for, dirt bike handlebars, we've got every dirt bike handlebar you can possibly imagine for every type of bike, right? We're not going to miss a gap on any of the intent-based stuff behind it. So if you've got a range play business, Google's probably your friend. If you've got third-party brands, and the way I think of this is if you are selling a product that already has a interest, right? Like I was watching the Grant Mayo, the podcast
Nutrition
before.
Warehouse.
Nutrition Warehouse. I would contend that part of his success is because he sells third-party brands, right? He's selling body science, which means he can bid on body science, get that customer in, right, and sell them either body science or his own product.
Yeah.
So
Cross-selling.
if you've got a wide set of products that are already known, Google's probably your friend. If you're starting a business where you're building a brand and building a set of products, like a core set of products, socials would be where I'd be allocating capital. There are a few rare exclusions or exemptions there where, like with your toilet business, you're a market, you're a category yourself, right? So someone's searching for that. There's not a lot of searches, but you're going to do well because you're the only product really in the market that matches that. Or say camping toilets, for example, you're so closely relatable that you're able to promote that product and still make it work.
So I got a question. Now, obviously with MX and Fight and our businesses, we're a catalog-based business, right? Selling third party and obviously going vertical and selling our own in-house brands now. If you were starting again, right, and you had the choice of going, all right, I'm going to start a catalog style business, right, and I'm going to sell many toilets, including an electric toilet, or you're going to go, you know what, no, I'm going to go vertical. I've got one product. I'm going to sell this electric toilet and I'm going to import it myself and it's higher margin. Which one would you do?
Good question. Because of my lessons in margin, like this is unique to me, this answer. I would be more likely to go after the single or small set of products style business and scale that, because your workload, like that, when you're dealing with 100,000 products, there's a lot of stuff to do. When you're dealing with 10,000 products, there's a lot of stuff. When you're dealing with 1,000 products, there's a lot to do. Like creating content on all that stuff is really difficult. If I would likely choose the, great product, great value, build a product and a brand and build it that way.
How important is the demonstrative aspect of it? So if you look at things like High Smile again, right, or My Toilet, they're both highly demonstrative visually inside of
Yes.
the ads.
Yes.
Like there's purple teeth. Like purple teeth, oh my God, they see it like that
Yep.
in this day and age, as opposed to our toothpaste is vegan and has been blessed by a monk in Kathmandu, you know? Like,
Yep.
how important is that visual sort of
Huge.
theatrics?
So what you're trying to recreate, I was talking to someone about this the other day. You're trying to recreate the store experience, right? When someone comes into a store, if you own that store and that store person was sitting behind the counter and did nothing and just let that person wander around on their own and then walk out, how annoyed would you be? Horribly. You want someone to come into your store. You want to take them by the hand. How can I help you? What are you looking for? You take them over to the product that they're interested in. Here's what it works. What are you using it for? Oh, you're using it for this. Fantastic. Here's how it's going to work. Actually, I think this product over here is going to be better for you because of these reasons. That demonstratability, you can do that online, right? And so my framework, I guess, for socials is, I've never said this anywhere publicly, I don't think, but you have inspiration, aspiration, right? You have product, and you have edutainment. They're the four kind of pillars for me as far as the type of content that people are looking to consume. So when I say inspiration, aspiration, it's inspiration is you're inspiring someone to do something, right? Using the High Smile example, it might be inspiring that by seeing the High Smile does both with their products because you're inspiring to have great white teeth because you're seeing the product and seeing how it works. Aspiration is, I'll use an MX example. Aspiration would be having a video of a podium finish, right, of a rider. I'm watching that video going, I ride dirt bikes too. I want to aspire to be that person. The edutainment piece is the demonstratability, right? Is part of the demonstratability, but the edutainment component is educating with entertaining qualities, and you're educating about the product, you're educating about the market, you're educating about how it might change you or change your life or whatever it might be, and then the product component is the more nuts and bolts, right? Granular specs. Here's how it works.
And sometimes the best do all of those.
It should.
We had Jelaine D in here just recently who sold the eyelash thickening stuff.
Yep.
And she used to demonstrate and the crowd would be entertained. They could see it. They were aspiring to have that result. It was kind of the theater all together.
If you could do all in one, that's like the perfect ad.
Yeah.
Right? Some markets are harder
And
to do
that's
than
the
others.
creative. When you're having your creative sessions, I think that's such a good thing to have printed on the wall. Is this inspirational? Is it aspirational?
Edutainment or product.
Is it edutainment or product, or can we get all of them in?
Yeah.
We had a realtor in 3 years in a row in Queensland, #1 realtor, and he showed us. Well, he didn't show us, but we found it on his socials. He's selling a retirement village, and he's sitting there like on a scooter with all the other old guys
walkers.
with the walkers, and he had that
Perfect.
music. You see me roll
Yeah.
and roll, the hip hop, and
Yep.
so he found a way to make selling a retirement village
Fun and engaging.
fun, engaging, aspirational, edutainment, showing the product as well.
Yep.
But it was like you found yourself watching this thing and it was all of those things. So I think that's a really good template. And the more demonstrable it is, because in the world we live in today, people's attention spans, if you're not doing these things, you're going to lose.
That's why I bring it back to that in-store experience, right? If you think about the best experience you have, you walk into Apple, they meet you at the door, you're here for your appointment, let's guide you through, they sit you down, they talk you through what you need, they make sure you get the right thing. That's what content needs to do.
It needs to bring it to life, doesn't
Yes.
it? Because so many people, I watch on Instagram, and you see these people who've got beautifully curated Instagram pages, but they don't move you, they don't touch you, and that's like Simon Beard said it. He's got a lot of great stuff. There's a reason he is as successful as he is. He said, retail is theatre.
Yes.
And in his stores, you walk in and the girls go, "How are you going? Welcome to Culture Kings." And he said, in normal retail, it's like a warm body in the corner ignoring you. But you got to think about your creative online in the same way.
Yep. And your creative online, but also the creative on your product page, right, or your site.
Right.
Because you're telling a story as you're going through that journey. And if you've caught someone in your creative, right, in your ads, they've come to your site, your job's not done yet, right? I see great creative being done and horrible websites that try to sell it, and they go, why isn't it working? Because you've got 3 images of your product. You've done a great job on the creative, but you've got 3 images on your product to get us there, but you've got 3 images on your product, and you've got a description, you've got a price. Do better. You know, like your product page, if I had 6 products, I'm spending so much time making sure that product page is almost like a story and a journey unto itself.
So that's interesting because that affects your conversion rate as well and the attribution back to your cost of traffic.
Which then impacts your spend. Your spend $1 make 10, because if you double your conversion, that ad is now spending $1 making 20.
The number of people I talk to, man, like seriously, Dan, we just spent 25 grand on upgrading our website,
Yep.
right? And people are like, oh, I could have got you that for 4 grand in app work. And I'm like, dude, like, I don't have time to tell you why we spent 25 grand with a proper agency to do this.
Yep.
But there's a company that specializes in e-commerce, Shopify conversion. That's their jam. That's all they do.
Yep.
Making those checkout pages and everything just absolutely work. And they've got a data set of all these high-end clients. That's what you're buying, and this is years of experience. And they go, oh, I could have got, you're like, dude, you're spending all this money on traffic. You don't want any leaky buckets or holes in.
So there's what a lot of people miss. They look at their Facebook ad account, they look at their data, but they don't look at any of the numbers behind of the website. How is this page performing relative to last year? How is the trends for this product page performing? Am I converting better or worse? How much traffic am I sending there? What have I done to improve that product page? Am I still priced relatively well on the market? Do I need to update my video because it's from 6 years ago and I just have forgotten about it? Like there is even like, and this is the thing, we make mistakes too, right? We aren't perfect. We still are learning as we go. Like I found a video from like 2017, I think, on our site, and it was so unrelatable, right? Because it's so old and talked about stuff that wasn't even relevant anymore. That's decreasing the user experience.
So your role at MX isn't just pulling the levers on the ads. You're doing the CRO as well. You're doing the on-page experiences, or there's another team there as well.
Yeah, we don't do titles. We just do at the end of the day. Like wherever we can support the best is what we do. I guess for me, one of the things that we kind of talk about is governance and ensuring that we're doing the things the best way. And that's probably more my role, is ensuring that we're doing things the right way in the manner that works. I don't want to use best practice, but
how do you ideate? So how do you ideate for creative? So like you can go into Meta and you can go into YouTube, you see how many clicks there are and how many searches there are, but the real magic is happening in the execution, right? Of how do you sit around and go, right, these pair of boots, let's talk about ways to run better ads, or what's the process there?
So this is where our creative team are epic. Like when you're first starting, you don't have the skill sets internally to be able to drive the content that's needed. We've kind of learned over time things that have worked. And so there's like some sort of guardrails or guidelines in terms of how things should be shot, how many flat lays should be done. And it's not just about the ads we're running, because you also have content you want to create for other things too. We're a little bit different in the sense that the ideation happens as a byproduct of the products you bring in, the brands you bring in. So it's not like you're sitting there going, oh, okay, well, what am I going to shoot for this product? You've got the brand, you've got the product, you've got the style. You know you have to do a flat lay. You know you have to do a 360. You know you have to, if it's a really good release or range or whatever, you're going out and getting a shot with a rider. So there's only a handful of things that work, but this is that compound experience piece. Correct. It's figuring it out over time what's worked, and occasionally you're testing new stuff.
A flat lay just means a photo.
Yeah, so it's if I've got a shirt, I'm putting it on a flat background and taking a shot.
Okay.
Just as an example.
And you put some graphics over it and stuff. It just depends.
Depends. Not usually not. Like some of our best performing creative has literally been, they've gone and taken the boots out of the box in the warehouse, stuck them on the floor with an iPhone, taken a shot on the floor, and there the ads are running.
Everybody go to MX Store and just look at what they're doing and buy some shit. Because these guys, if you go to their website, do you think you've had a fucking creepy ex before? These guys,
they don't leave you alone.
These guys should be arrested.
We'll follow you around.
Leave you around.
Yeah, we'll follow you around for a while.
I actually had a mate a couple of weeks ago come up to me. He's like, "How you going?" He's in real estate, and he's an avid MX guy. And he goes, "Man, I buy so much shit off you guys, And he goes, but I got a text message not long ago, and it was basically saying along the lines of,
we miss you.
Where have you been? We miss you," like along those lines. And he goes, you made me feel bad. I actually went to the website and I bought stuff. I'm like, good, like it's anyone that I talk to, like I'm not a moto guy myself, right? But any of my acquaintances that are in moto and MX, like they always come up to me, right? And they're like, you guys do such a good job. Like you guys care so much about the customer, like and that's what it's about. It's customer, range, service. We're not about price.
No.
Right? We've never been about price. And this is where people need to get very clear on what they want in a business. Like your toilet, it's a high-end $2,000 toilet. It's not a $500 camping toilet, right? And you can't be everything to everyone, or else you'll end up cannibalizing your own business, right? And everything that we do at MX, there's so much strategy and thought put into it going, but if we do this, how is it going to affect the brand? Right.
And so I wanted to touch on that because we are very purpose-led, right? We genuinely care about our customers. Like our thing is to make the sport safer and more accessible, right? Like if you're riding a dirt bike, it can be a risky activity. You can break bones, you can break your neck. And so making it easier for people to get the products that let them ride safer is huge for us. And to your point, Eric, the customer is what matters, right? That text message, there's tactics we employ, right, to help build the business. But if you don't have that fundamental love of the customer, that fundamental love of the industry and making a difference, then for me at least, I have to have that there, right? I have to know that I'm making a difference and making that industry better, greater, safer. Yeah.
Those values are like, it might sound like it's not related. There'll be people sitting there going, dude, just get back to the technicalities of PPC or the technicalities of using the meta platform and the optimization.
Yep.
But what you got to understand is that it's not just data. There's this creative expression layer to everything that's on. So you see, like Apple, the conversion rate of an Apple retail store is so much higher than, and it's per dollar per square foot is so much higher than other retailers. Why? Because of the layers of cultural.
It's the why.
It's the why.
Right.
It's experienced at every touch point.
Yes. And the why you do something. So yes, there's the tactic side, but why are you doing it in the first place? If you're doing it for money, you'll burn out, right? Your why has to be greater than the reason that you started. Like you have to go, I want to change something. I have to make a difference or something.
I got a couple things. One is, so if you were, a lot of viewers, they're in startup phase, they got $1 million business, they got a $10 million business, they got a $100 million business.
Yep.
What's a couple tips that you would give, right, the viewers going, okay, I'm a startup.
Yep.
And I got a great idea.
Yep.
I need to, allocate some spend.
Yep.
If I'm a $1 million business, if I'm a $10 million business, $100 million business, however you want to break it down. Yep. But if you were to do it again, knowing what because you've been the startup, you've been the $1 million business, you've been the $10 million business, you now are the $100 million business, and we now have other goals over and above that, right? So, yeah.
So, like I was saying before, when you're first starting out, you're allocating a dollar amount that you can, whether it's $100 a month or 10,000 a month, it doesn't matter. Allocate something so that you can test. When you're in that sort of couple $100,000 to mil range, it's about scaling what works, right? And so scaling what works is what's going to take you from 1 to 5. And when I say scaling what works, that's not just the creative, that's not just the ads, it's the products you have, right? So you're scaling on the product side as well. You're scaling on the categories potentially that you have. The one thing that can sink a business is going too hard, too deep into something there's an unknown, right? So you're still testing small, right, to figure out what works so that you can scale those things when you're in that sort of couple $100,000 to mil range. When you get to that sort of 1 to 5, like you'll end up getting, with Google at least, you'll end up getting to a point where potentially you're at a market cap. This is the size that business is going to be because there's no more people searching for it. I now have to go and create the market to help drive that business. Or I need to find additional products or categories that are relatable to my customer, not just because you want to do the product, but who is my customer, and do I have a brand and a business that can sell products that are similar to that customer? A lot of businesses will cap out at 5 or 10 mil, and that's okay, right? Don't try and be $100 million business, right? Or don't look at $100 million business and go, oh, I want to be that, when the business doesn't have the capacity to. If it's reached its peak, maybe sell it, or maybe optimize it to the point where it's a lifestyle business, so you can go and do the thing that is going to be a $50 million business, right? There's few businesses that are able to get to that sort of mid 8, 9 plus figure range in e-com, at least, anyway.
And that's based on your experience, right? You've seen a lot of different businesses, obviously, with your agency.
Yeah, and not just that, but you like can't share those numbers, but people that have started their business, right? Most e-coms that are at market cap are in that sort of 50 to 70 range, right? So
Where they've topped out.
Yeah, where it's topped out. Right, you got some public companies like Temple & Webster and Adore Beauty, and those ones where they're at 150, or I think Temple & Webster's at 400. But even still, there will come a point where they'll reach their market cap because there's no more customers to go after in Australia. They'll either have to go international or they have to expand beyond that. So if you've got a business that continues to scale, and how you know that is as you're adding new products and categories, or you still have market growth to go after, that growth rate will continue, right? Your trajectory will continue. You have to also fight with competitors, right? Some people don't like this analogy, but to me, the online space, it's like a UFC fight. You and your competitor are going into the ring, right? One of you is coming out victorious, and that's going to be me. The other one's going to be bloody. You might be bloody too. You get punched, you get back up, but you're fighting for your market share, and that is a continuous, ongoing battle. You got to be willing to do that for the life of the business.
Yeah.
So just on that, sort of another tangent on what Eric was saying about some people have got brand new, the $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, and the fact that you said, Facebook and Google make it easy for anyone to throw up an ad to begin with, and then it's mastering that craft.
Yep.
Now, as an entrepreneur, not everyone has the time to do what you do. You're a master of your craft.
Yep.
You probably couldn't run Amex on your own.
No,
So,
God, no.
and we've just talked to that point that we've all had tragic experiences with most agencies. Agencies are shit. What would be your top tips or 5 top things that you'd question an agency if you're going to interview them for a company, being the entrepreneur that doesn't have time to master your craft?
Great question.
Fantastic question. So I'll split these into 2, because the questions you need to ask in Google are different than the questions you need to ask in socials.
Sure.
But from a Google perspective, you're asking, what are the targets? What are the targets that they're getting? So in Google, you can go into a thing called search terms, right? So within your account, you go to search terms. You can have a look at all the search terms that are there that are being triggered. What should happen is, over time, there should be a curation process of those search terms. Now, with MX, for example, Google, in all its benevolence and wisdom with their own algorithms, thought that they should bid on the letter O or the letter P. Literally the search term. So we spent $150 on people searching for O for no return. Now, if you're not looking at that stuff, and I guarantee most agencies aren't, but if you're not looking at the search terms and trying to figure out what is wasted, that's where the optimization comes in. So the first thing is, I would be asking, what are the search terms? What are the key search terms? And I separate, and what a lot of agencies do is they lean on the brand side, and that's okay, right? Brand value for your return in Google should be about half of what your non-brand search terms. When I say brand, it's like people searching for early bird. Non-brand would be, AI agency. The second thing is, do they have everything targeted? Right. So for us, we've got 400 and something brands. We've got thousands of categories. We've got 100,000 products. I should be able to go into my Google account, and if I've got a black pen category, I should be able to see a campaign that's targeting black pens. The keywords are targeted for black pens. You want to ensure that everything is targeted correctly and going to the right place. A simple thing to do is go have a look at your ads that you have. So you've got your keywords, you then have your ads, you have the location those ads go to. What a lot of agencies do is they just throw up ads and they send them to the homepage. That's lazy, right? You want to make sure that your keyword, this is basic stuff, but sorry, it's simple stuff. Your keyword matches the intent you're targeting. The ad you're showing for that keyword matches the keyword that someone's searching for, and the landing page you're sending them to, the page you're sending them to, matches the ad that you're saying it is. So you're not there's no disconnect for a person going through that journey. And so if you're ordering an account or auditing an account or looking at your own account and asking the question, is my agency doing their job? Those are two very simple things that you can look at and go, are they delivering me the right search terms? Because if they're not, I guarantee there's going to be waste. For me, a tolerance of waste, because you're never going to remove everything. A tolerance for waste is okay. But I've seen accounts where you can literally half the cost day 1 to day 2, right, by removing the waste, and their return goes through the roof just by changing that. And the second thing is the journey, making sure the journey's right.
So that's Google?
That's Google.
Right.
On the social side, so there's a thing called CPM, which is just a cost per thousand metric, right? So you might have a $20 CPM, which means that you're spending $20 for every 1,000 eyeballs that something generates. As a rule of thumb, that 1,000 eyeballs will generate a click-through rate, typically 1-2%, depends. But that 1,000 eyeballs might generate 10 to 20 people. If that CPM, right, and that those 20 people, let's say it's 2%, those 20 people going to my site, I'm not going to know if that's working or not by just having a look at if it's 1,000 searches or 1,000 impressions, 20 people. So I need to have at least 5,000 impressions, right, for that ad if I've got a 2% click-through rate, for me to be able to make a decision on whether that ad's probably good or not. So one thing, your spend to ad ratio is important. What some people can do is they go, I got to put up 30 ads and I've got $500 to spend. No, right? Rule of thumb, every $200 a month you got to spend, one ad.
Got it.
Simple rule of thumb. Now there's metrics behind there. If your CPMs are lower, you can test more ads. If your CPCs are lower, you can test more ads. Your click-through rates are through the roof, you can test more ads. But as a rule of thumb, every $200 you spend in socials is one ad. So a simple auditing thing is if you're spending 10 grand, right, I would want to see 50 ads. If you're spending 100 grand, I would want to see 500 ads. If there's the limit, like Facebook has the limit.
That's social.
That's socials.
Right.
So that's first. Is my agency running enough ads for the spend that I've got? Next thing is the audiences. Is my agency allocating enough capital to people that don't know my brand? And are they allocating enough capital to people that do know my brand? Because what a lot of agencies will do is they won't do anything for people that don't know their brand, which means they're only getting people that know you, which means that you're going to get a better return. That's lazy, right? You want to make sure that, and you can see this when you go into campaigns and ad sets, you can go through the audiences and you can see what the audiences are. I will always have the simple methodology of exclude people that know my brand when I'm including and testing audiences for people that don't know. Right? So are they doing that? Those two things will give you a sense of whether they're doing the things right or whether they're doing things wrong. And if they're not doing them, they probably don't know how to do them.
Got it. And there's a third layer to that, because over the years I've been using Google and Facebook agencies, is that we talked a lot about before, which was about the creative. Because a lot of these Google agencies and Facebook agencies we've used in the past are reliable. They go, we only run the ads. That's all we do. With top tips to find a creative agency that's going to dish up or deliver A-grade content?
This is hard because I personally believe that the person that's best to do the creative for the business is the business owner themselves. They know their product, they know their market. Like we've used a third-party agency for quite a long time with MX, but it's if you're going to find a creative agency, two different things. Someone who knows how to do ads, they might have they'll know roughly what is going to work creatively, but they can't design shit. Like if you ask me to design an ad, right, creatively, shoot the shot, make the video, no way, right? But I know what it should look like.
Yeah.
But that's where a good creative agency that does good content needs to partner with you. And that's why when I say I've got an agency, I hate the word agency because it just sounds like this thing over there on the side. Like anyone that's running your paid, anyone that's running your creative, they're like a partner. They have to give a shit about your business as much as you.
I think as an entrepreneur, looking at this without the data brain you have, I think a good hack is to look at brands you know are performing really well.
Yeah.
And become obsessed with what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Like really obsessed, like breaking down, like going to High Smile again, just to keep leaning on these guys. But there's a reason that they are where they are.
Yep.
You need to go in and become obsessed about what they're doing and watch them like a hawk. There is a formula that reveals itself through deep work.
So there's well-structured e-com businesses that you can learn from generically. They don't have to be in your market. Then you have the in your market landscape. And if you're starting out, you better be sure your creative needs to be either different, like old mate with his, mobility scooter, not mobility, the retirement village, whatever, different enough or better than what is currently in the market. Because that's the only way you're going to get engagement.
We see it like not talking about ads, but talking about content. So with our Unemployable, with our short form clips, we look at Alex Hormozi, who spends $3 million a year on his content.
Yep.
And then we've sat down and go, what is he doing different to us? And you learn about hooks, and you learn about taking out all the pauses, all the peripheral. You look at the fact that it's actually shareable. It's actually good content. You come away feeling like, so you've got this framework: inspiration, aspiration, products, edutainment. So he's educating you every single time. He's not using fancy words. There's no latency in the messaging, and you start to really obsess over it. And then we've done split tests where we've gotten a reel back from our editor, and then we've overlaid what we've learned from Hormozi, and we go back and edit it and change these things, and then we put both out there, and the retention rate is like 40% higher through those optimizations. Now, 40% is sort of this nefarious number, but it can mean the difference between profitable, not profitable, viral, not viral.
100%.
And people don't, like, I get into, people go, why are you up so early in the morning sometimes? And why do you see entrepreneurs working late at night? It's because they are at the end of their day, they're going into their ad account, even if they're not running it, and they're ripping all the data out and just pouring over it until they can start to see patterns. And they will, unless you're a complete dummy, you'll start to be able to go, why is that how that is? And then next time you have your meeting with your agency, and you quite often find them with their hand in the cookie jar or just being asleep at the wheel. Or you can go to ChatGPT and you can pull out all that data and you can dump it into ChatGPT-4 and say, got a meeting with my marketing boss tomorrow. Here's all our ad data from the last 30 days. What changes would you make to this account? And show me some graphs. And a ChatGPT may be right or wrong, but at least you're getting some feedback that an assistant helping you. But you've got to do that work when you don't know what you're doing.
Asking the why question, right, is probably the best thing you can do, right? Whether you're using an agency or not, if you're running it yourself, looking at the numbers and just going, why is that? Why is that number higher than the others? Go and have a look at the creative. Oh, I'm running that creative versus this creative. Oh, that makes sense. Next time you do creative, maybe take those lessons and go and apply them next time you do it. Something I just want to point out on what you said before, I don't differentiate between content that is paid versus content that's organic.
Yeah, because the same principles,
it's
right?
the same principles, and it's the platform. At the end of the day, someone scrolling through on their Insta feed, right? The best ad is one that doesn't look like an ad.
Yes.
That's what's going to get the engagement.
Engagement is a science.
Yes.
And Alex Hormozi again talks about it so well. Grace Andrews, who runs Diary of a CEO's marketing, Alex has a guy whose only job is to sift through the enormous amount of content that's produced to identify just the key moments. And that's what Richard's job is here. He's going to go through this pod and create a trailer out of this. It is an art to dissect 90 minutes of content and distill it down into hooks and cliffhangers and things that are going to make people want to watch the whole pod. That's a science of obsession. And people go, AI is going to replace everything, and offshore contractors, and they go, bullshit. The future is going to be quality. The future is going to be the editor, the creative, obsessed person.
In the near term, AI is simply, to me, leverage.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
Leverage is what you can do faster.
Yeah. Creativity is still a human trait.
Absolutely.
And obsession and fastidious attention to it, because I think that's where the game's going to be won or lost. You've got to know the data as well, but that's everything else.
Yeah, and to your point, like there's no way I could run Instore on my own. Like I'm so lucky to have business partners that are in the weeds with me, that with a team that is just incredible. Like it's you stand on the shoulders of giants.
Maybe you could talk, because we're going to wind this up now. But just, you did say at the start you wanted to talk about the importance of people. Maybe you could just, how do you obviously lead a team, right? You recruit and lead a team. So
Yep.
why do people listen to you? I suspect you may not. I get a strong sense that you're one of these people that's kind of unconsciously competent. You're a great leader, but you may not have thought why. And when I met the other founder, Jake, yeah, Jake's just got mad respect, over there at MX Store, and you would in your department as well. And I think it's because you guys are actually there on the tools. You're not wankers, but you're actually there. But how would you describe it? Eric's a wanker, but you guys
and and by the sounds of it, has no respect there either. Just, who's
bang,
this
eh?
fucker? Get out!
Jab, right hook. Wow.
How would you describe it, Dan? Like, what makes great leadership from your point of view, and how do you get and keep great people?
To me, it's actually caring about the person, and it does make it difficult because you're invested in the human, professionally and personally. And that means that professionally, like if that person knows that you've got their back, no matter what, they'll move heaven and earth, right? And you'll do the same for them. So I think the fundamental thing for me, and there's a couple of great books, like anything by Patrick Lencioni is incredible. But people, to me, we can't run businesses on our own. Like there's a handful of businesses that are, yes, you might get to 10 mil, a mil, maybe even 50. I don't know. I haven't seen any that are single operator, that level. But your investment in humans, and I say humans because our number one value is be a good human, right? That's our core one, and that first core value at our business: be a good human, or don't be a wanker. In that investment of time into people is what will.
Can you give me a couple of examples of how that would show up with your experience with how have you had somebody's back at MX Store, or how have they had your back at MX Store?
Oh man.
Just a couple of examples where people have gone, fuck, this was very different to my last company.
Yeah, it could be simple stuff. So like my right-hand girl, her mum went through some really challenging health stuff, right? Last couple of years ago. And she'd be like, I have to go to the hospital tomorrow. I'm like, no worries, I'll cover for you.
Okay.
Right. It's simple stuff that makes a difference in their lives, not just the work side. Because obviously, yes, there's the work side, giving people a purpose, driving for, really good quality work, creating a great environment, all that's there. But looking after the human is also important too.
Okay. So just really practical, like don't be a dickhead.
Yeah.
Type stuff, like be a nice person.
Be a good human.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple, but when you're trying to be, like you said, the unconscious competence component, but it's people try to be good and fail. Where you just be a good human.
Yeah,
do the right thing.
It's a simple thing, but it's easy to miss, right? Like it sounds like just a high level platitude, but actually when you're trying to start a business, a lot of people listening to this have got a full-time day job where they've eaten shit all day. They come home, they've got kids at their feet demanding their attention, and they're trying to build their side hustle. It's very easy not to be a good human at times, and so be a good human is a really good thing. And I think recognizing that you chose the path and still being a good human, there's certainly times I look back and I go, I haven't been a good human right there, just because you're just so stressed and overloaded.
100%. And you're not going to be perfect all the time, right? It's an ideology, not a everyday it's an ideology and everyday mentality. It's not everyday action necessarily. That's what you're striving for.
And I think just checking in. Like I know you and I, we're always, checking in. Are you good? How are you going? Because I know Dan's a very unique character. He's, either 120 miles an hour or 20. Like I always, I'm like, just be a steady 80. Be a steady 80, right? But it's just not him. So that's why, like always checking in. I think that's a big thing as well. Not just with your business partners, but with key people, that are working with you, key team members, right? And checking in on them. Just, you good? How what's happening? Because you could get the energy and the vibe, right?
A practical example there, like you asked for a practical example, maybe 4 days ago, Monday. Walked into the warehouse, and Angel, she works in a warehouse. She's always smiling, always happy, right? And I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" And she turned and she smiled, but it was one of those smiles that goes, "I'm not happy." It was like, little one. I walked off, came back at lunch. I walked up to her. I'm like, "Hey, have you got 5 minutes?" And she's like, "Am I in trouble? Or is everything all right?" I'm like, "No, I just wanted to ask you something." She's like, "Do you mind?" I go, because there was other people there. I'm like, "Do you mind if I ask you here?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Are you okay?" Just that question. Are you okay? She's like, "I'm like, what do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, usually you got this huge smile on your face, and today, I noticed something was up. I just want to make sure you're all good." And she's like, "Oh, just had this problem with my electricity company and blah, blah, blah." But so her and her mum work for us, and you could see the impact that had on their day just by me asking, "Hey, are you okay?"
Have you struggled with that yourself at points,
Oh man, of course.
with depression and things like that,
Yeah.
anxiety?
If you want to get deep,
No, I want to just ask the question because I know a lot of people who run businesses do, and
Yep.
and they think when I've got $100 million business, not I've got $100 million business, I won't suffer from these things.
no, it's the problems and scale change, but the problems are still there. And to me, it's the constant work that you got to do. Like some days you wake up, and like some days I wake up and I am 120, right? And my 120 is 120, and people can't keep up. Some days my 120 is 20, and I'm getting up and I'm putting one foot in front of the other, and I'm going through the motions, and that's the best I've got. And to me, it's not about being 120 every day. It's be your best self for that day. And sometimes that best self, you might look at it and go, "That's not great," but at least you're moving, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes you ain't. And that's okay too, because sometimes you need a day. You need to take a knee. I remember a conversation with Jake ages back. I'm like, I know for myself, I don't quit, right? And I think this is the difference. When you have anxiety, the couple to that is the mentality of never quitting, because you know that you're going to have days that are challenging, days that are hard, but you know that it might take you a day, a week, a month, a year, but you will get back up.
The thing is, your 20 is most people's 80. That's that's the crazy thing, right?
But this is what it's about yourself. It's your
Yeah.
best work.
Yeah, and
That's the measurement.
another thing that Dan does that I have never ever done is what are you up to over the next month, couple of weeks? I don't know if you've done this recently, but I know you've done this many times over the years. And he's like, "Actually, I'm going away." Okay, where are you going? "Oh, I'm just 3 days by myself, hotel, Sunshine Coast, and just regroup on my own, read, document, journal."
Yep.
Like, that's powerful.
Yep. Yeah, I have intentionally slowed down this last 2 years, and I'm starting to speed back up. When I'm at 120 consistently, me taking time for myself, like I'm a big journal fan. Write your thoughts down, get it out on paper, critique it, think about it. But taking that time for yourself, like I'm married, got a lovely wife, got 3 kids, 3 boys, 16, 15, and 12. And so the pressures, I say pressures because it's not stress, like it is just pressure. You have the responsibility of your family, you got the responsibility of businesses, you got the responsibility of the people in the businesses. That is responsibility, and that comes with weight, and that's okay. Taking time for yourself in those moments, taking whether it's a day or an hour or 3 days if you need it, ensuring you're taking yourself time for yourself is, I think, critical.
I think one of the big assets that I've observed with you guys at MX is you genuinely respect each other and support each other, which there's a lot of entrepreneurs sitting out there on their own right now, and it's really a lonely road on your own. And I really encourage listeners to, partner up, at least if not in equity in your businesses, find another one or two crazy son of a bitches that are on this road, because there are times I'm sure where, Dan, you've probably fallen in a heap because some shit's gone down in your life, or some shit's gone down in Eric's life, or some shit's gone down in someone's life.
Yep.
And the important part is that when somebody's at 20, someone else is at 120.
Yes.
And I heard this beautiful quote about relationships. So you need to be in a relationship where some days you go home to your wife and you say, "How you doing, honey?" And she's like, "I'm at 80. I'm like, "Good, because I'm at a 20. You go, "I got you." And if you got 3 or 4 business partners, it's unlikely you're all at 20.
Yep.
So I think it's a really valuable thing, that mateship and that checking in, that simple act, with your mates and making sure that they're okay.
And the being okay with being vulnerable to share that. I think that that's a big lesson for me over the years has been I'm now okay with being vulnerable. I don't mind people hearing that I'm not okay. You know, there's no facade necessary. And a key quote, those people that mind don't matter, and those people that matter don't mind.
Yeah.
So when you come home and you're a 20 and your wife's an 80 and she goes, I got you, she doesn't mind that you're at a 20.
It's actually a secret. Like, you know, I've had mates call me up and confide in me that they're not okay. And I actually feel quite honored at that moment that they chose to call me.
Yep.
And it's actually not an imposition at all. It's actually an honor. And I think when you're feeling bad, you should remember that it's like anxiety. The worst thing about anxiety is when you're in it, the last thing you want to do is tell someone.
Yep.
But everyone says, oh, when you're feeling anxious, just tell me. It's the sort of when you're feeling 20, you don't want to tell your mates that you're doing a 20.
Yep.
But some days you're just in the mud and you need to be a mate to come and sit in the mud with you. You don't need them to fix anything. You just need them to just sit there and hang.
Yep.
I've had it, or James and I have been through times like that. Eric and I have, you know, and our mateship and stuff is really important.
Hugely valuable.
Hugely valuable. It's really good. So on that note, Dan, thank you for coming in, man. Like,
Pleasure.
I really appreciate the time. If you are listening, we asked Dan if there was, who is, because he does have a high-end agency called Conversion Factory, but you really got to be doing 10 million up. Really 10 to 50 million a year is the range, but no corporates. We don't want any corporates. Dan wants to deal with the owners.
Yep.
So ideally guys that are at 10 to 50 million and want to maybe get to 100 plus, assuming you've got the TAM to do it, the total addressable market.
Yep.
Reach out to us and we'll connect you with Dan if you're in that bracket. And one thing I just want to observe just in closing is, you know, a lot of times I think we are guilty of underestimating the size of a business. People are limited more by their vision than they are by the market. Like when I first heard that, you know, there was $100 million a year business selling motorbike handlebars and tires in Australia, I'm get the fuck out. Come on, really? Who would have thought there was that big a business online in there? Who would have thought High Smile would get to where it got to with teeth whitening? So always challenge, realize that, you know, sometimes your thinking is really what the challenge is. There are big markets, even domestically in Australia. Don't always be looking outside to the outside world. It's a question of vision and commitment to your cause. So Dan, thank you for coming. Eric, thank you for being here. James, thank you.
Thank you.
And hopefully you guys at home got something out of the pod. Drop a comment below. Let Dan know what you learned from today. We really appreciate it. And we will see you in the next, Dan.
So just a thing, I'll do my best for this, but if anyone has any questions around ads or, you know, you've got a business and you got a question, chuck a comment below. And I'll do my best to maybe whether it's sending it to Eric to
That's
put
a
in
big
there
call.
or whatever. Yeah, I'll do my best. I don't know how many there's going to be, but I'll do my best to answer some as well.
Okay. So drop your comment below. You heard it here. Dan will answer that question for you, which is really kind. Thank you. So drop a comment, guys. Subscribe to the channel. Let people know. And we will see you on the next pod. Bye for now. Hey there. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Unemployable. If you'd like to watch another episode, just click there.